Welcome to What We Made Possible, the podcast where we explore the power of healing and driving change for advocates, leaders, and change makers. The conversations here draw the connection between creating new possibilities in the world, possibilities of care, of belonging, of thriving for our communities, with stories of personal healing and loving relationship building. I'm your host, Patty Dayleg, leadership coach for social change. I spent a decade in nonprofits, government, and DEI, securing 6- and 7-figure opportunities for communities of color. And I've experienced firsthand the transformative power of compassion, healing, and belonging in making a bigger impact. Let's dive in. Hey friends, welcome back to What We Made Possible. I'm Patty Dayleg, and today I want to talk about something that's been weighing on a lot of leaders that I coach, which is low morale. Maybe you're seeing it in your team right now. People seem checked out, motivation might be low, and no matter how hard you try, it feels like you're dragging everyone forward. That's exhausting, and I get it. The truth is, this work is heavy. We're leading through uncertainty, there's funding shifts, constant change, and when morale dips, it's really easy to focus on just trying to get things done. But I want to offer a different perspective, that morale isn't just about productivity, it's about people. And when we care for our teams, we care for the communities that we serve. So today, I want to share real coaching strategies that have helped leaders re-energize their teams. And instead of just listing them out, I'll do a little bit of storytelling. So we'll walk through what the shifts actually look like when leaders put them into practice. And if you're feeling stuck and wondering how to turn things around, keep listening because this is for you. So first story was this nonprofit leader that I worked with. She came to me feeling frustrated and drained. We had been working together for a little while, but one day she came to me and she said, I keep asking my team to be more engaged, but it's not happening, and I don't get it. I know that they care about this work, so why do I feel like I'm pulling all the weight? And after some digging, we realized that everyone had a different idea of what engagement meant, right? Engagement meant different things to different people on her team. So for her, it meant contributing ideas in meetings, following through on action items, taking initiative. But for her team, it felt vague and confusing. So they're like, oh, if I contribute to the group chat on Teams or in Slack or whatever it was, then I'm engaging, right? They just didn't know what it meant. So for them, the way that they were engaging didn't mean the same as her. So we got specific, right? Instead of saying, I need you to be more engaged, she started saying, hey, I'd love for you to share one idea in today's meeting. Or she said, let's make sure everyone follows up with their assigned contacts by Friday and let everybody know in the chat how it goes so that we can talk about it, right? And the difference was that her team knew what was expected and they stepped up. So if you want to boost morale, start here. Get clear, make expectations specific. Don't assume that people just know what engagement looks like, because we all have different ideas. And your disappointment might be coming from a miscommunication as opposed to actually people not showing up. So that's the first piece. Second piece is shifting from checking up to checking in. So after this client set clearer expectations, she made another shift, how she checked in with her team. So before, her one-on-ones felt like a list of tasks to report on, right? Did you do this? Where are you on that? But it wasn't building connection, so we reframed it. Instead of checking up, she started checking in. So she would ask and assume that they were doing what they needed to do, right? And she would ask, What is feeling easy this week? What's feeling hard, right? Assuming that you're doing the thing that you need to be doing and it's a higher level conversation. What's something that you're excited about right now? Is there anything you need from me to feel more supported? And it changed everything, right? Team members started opening up, not just about the work, but about kind of these like higher level conversations about what they needed to thrive. So if morale feels low, ask yourself, am I checking in about tasks or am I actually checking in on my people? The understanding is that relationship comes before task. And if I check in on my people, then I know that the task will come. Number 3, giving feedback that energizes rather than deflates. So another leader that I was coaching was struggling to give constructive feedback without feeling discouraging. Let me know if that sounds familiar, right? Here's the thing. People actually do want feedback. What drains morale is not the feedback itself. It's when feedback is vague or only focused on what's wrong. And it makes sense if you are a leader of color, if you're a woman of color, if you're first gen, that you have had this experience, right, of being afraid to give constructive feedback or struggling to give constructive feedback because you have likely had to navigate predominantly white institutions where you actually don't get feedback that is useful for you, right? It could be just focus on what's wrong. It could be vague, passive aggressive. You actually weren't taught a method for how to do it. So I introduced to her this method that I like to introduce to a lot of my leaders who want a framework for how to give feedback that's clear, but encouraging and is forward focused. And that is called the COIN method. And COIN, COIN, stands for circumstance, observation, impact, and then next steps. And so for this particular client, the thing that was happening that she wanted to give feedback on is that they were moving through a transition of technology and her team needed to watch a set of videos in order to train for this switchover. And the circumstance, that's a circumstance, right, is that they were switching over and her team needed to watch a series of videos. The observation, O in COIN, is that they did not. They did not meet the deadline for watching the series, which means that they were going to be unprepared for the upcoming meeting to transition. So the observation is connected to their actual behavior. They did it or they did not, right? If you're giving feedback in another instance where maybe someone is showing up in a certain way, then you talk about the observation of what they said and what they did, not an observation of, hey, like, I observe that you're being dumb in this situation. Like that's your assumption and that's your projection of what's happening. That's not the observation. So again, you're trying to be neutral here so that you can offer feedback that is constructive and clear. So O for observation is about action. What did they do and what did they not do? I is for impact, right? So in this situation where this client needed her team to watch a series of videos, they didn't do it. What is the impact? That means that they then had to delay their follow-up meeting, which was around training for the implementation of this transition. They were the only team that was holding the entire company back, right? And so the impact that has on the company is that they might be spending more money in order to continue to have both subscriptions, right, to these technologies. But the impact on the individuals and their careers and is that like, hey, if I have to have this conversation with my boss, right? If I have to have this conversation with the CEO because my team isn't showing up, that means that when it comes time to advocate for you for salary increases, for promotions, it actually becomes more difficult to have those conversations because I have to demonstrate that you are doing your job well, you're going above and beyond. But if you're missing deadlines that impact the entire company, then I actually can't have that conversation, right? I have to be on the defense as opposed to advocating for you. And then N is for next steps, right? This is really about co-creating and making sure that you have accountability for what comes next, right? So the way that I invite my clients to offer next steps is not a top down, this is what you have to do, right? It's to co-create with the team member or with your team about what has to happen next, right? Now that you know the circumstances, now that you know the behavior, the observation, and now that you understand the impact, what naturally comes next here? And how can we as a team figure it out? So she asked her team, what do you think has to happen now? And they came up with this idea to watch all of these trainings together at some point. They set a meeting so that they can all sit together and do it. Now, before she had this coin method, the only thing that she had was you didn't do it, right? And you need to do it now. When we are shifting into a leadership position, more and more, you're not just giving tasks, you're motivating people, right? So it's not your job to just tell people what to do. They're not robots. It's your job to energize them and get them excited for what is coming up, right? Get them motivated for the thing that needs to happen and to play their role in the bigger picture. And so when you give that background of the impact, the circumstance, the observation, what is their actual behavior, and then the next steps, and you co-create those next steps, you're actually increasing this level of proactiveness in your team and allows them to step up, right? So when she tried this, people didn't feel defensive when usually they would come into meetings and just kind of either be defensive or just kind of take the hit as if they're being yelled at. And then they're like, oh, yeah, I can do it. And then they just continue to not do it, right? In this instance, they didn't do that. They started asking for more feedback. They understood exactly what to do next. So this is an instance where clear is kind and clear is energizing. So if you've been avoiding tough conversations, try this approach, right? Feedback doesn't have to drain morale. It can build it, right? This can be a moment to be like, hey, I trust you. We do good work together, but this particular thing is not working. So how can we shift it? Okay, the last piece that I want to talk about is the power of humor and humanity. So there was this one leader who I was working with who felt like she had to be serious all the time in order to be taken seriously. And I get it. When the work is high stakes, it can feel like there's no room for lightness. And it's interesting. We would start coaching sessions and she would be super dynamic. We would talk about oh, look, what's going well? What can we celebrate? How was your weekend? Da-da-da. And she would be, hands flying all over the place. She's laughing, smiling. And then once we get to the coaching, the instant I would ask, how can I support you? She would go deadpan. She would sit back. Her energy would deplete. And she felt like she had to be serious, even in our coaching sessions. And I asked, hey, does this happen when you're in meetings? When you're leading a meeting or when you are getting up in front of a group or when you're in front of your team? And she said, yeah, it does happen. I'm a different person when I'm leading. But our teams actually mirror our leader's energy. And so if a leader is always tense and hyper focused, then the team feels it and they feel like they need to be in that mode too. And so what happens, right? If you are showing up to work and everything feels like it has to be serious, then you have to put on this mask, right? And sometimes we don't intend to do it. I'll give you the funniest example that I have around kind of putting on that mask and changing how you show up in a space. So I'm a yoga teacher as well as being a leadership coach. I taught in the city for a few years. I taught here in New Jersey for a year. And when I was in my training, one of my trainers, one of my mentors talked about that yoga teacher voice. You know that voice when you go into a class and then the teacher is like this, and then you inhale, and then you exhale, and then you stretch, and then you break, right? But then when you talk to them after class, they talk like a regular person. It's this weird thing that happens to us when we feel like we have to perform or be a leader, that we actually put on a different voice, like we're trying to be someone else. But for this particular leader, and honestly, like for yoga teachers or anyone who's like in a leadership position, you don't have to force that, right? So with this particular person, we leaned into humor, not in a forced way, but just by being herself. Like just laughing when something was actually funny, celebrating small wins, making space for joy, send a meme once in a while in the group chat, right? And guess what? Her team started to breathe a little easier. Meetings weren't just efficient, they were actually energizing. So here's my challenge to you. Where can you bring more lightness into your leadership? Because sometimes morale isn't just about a big structural change. It's about how we show up in the little things. Okay, last, let's talk about modeling well-being. Let's talk about a leader who was completely burned out. She was in a moment where it was towards the end of a government contract. She was pushing through, and she felt like she had to continue just like spinning her wheels. And in our coaching work, we realized and we worked on one core realization. Leaders set the emotional tone, right? So when you are feeling like you have to push through, again, your team feels like they have to push through. So when she started prioritizing her own well-being instead, right, stepping away when she needed to, setting boundaries like ending the day at a certain time, her team started doing the same. And one day a team member told her, "It's really refreshing to see you actually take breaks. It makes me feel like I can too." Right? That's the power of modeling. When you take care of yourself, you're not just helping yourself, right? You're giving permission to your team to do the same. And I would argue that this modeling happens not just in our well-being, it happens in so many other instances, right? We set the tone, the emotional tone in our organizations, in our teams. So however you are showing up is your invitation to your team to show up in the same way. So in your next meeting, in the next time you're gathering with your team, especially if you're a leader, I want to ask you, what energy do you want to invite your team to show up with? Okay, so as we wrap up, short episode, I want you to ask yourself, which one of these shifts feels most important for you right now? Maybe it's getting clear on expectations. Maybe it's checking in more intentionally. Maybe it's making space for joy and humor. Whatever it is, know this. You don't have to overhaul everything at once. Small shifts make a difference. One of my mentors used to say, small hinges swing big doors. So when you focus on taking care of your team, not just their work, but their well-being, you create a culture where people want to show up, they want to stay engaged, they want to do their best work. I know that this is a challenge for a lot of people, so if this episode resonated with you, I'd love to hear more from you. DM me, comment, share this episode with someone who needs to hear it. And if you're looking for support in bringing these strategies into your team, your organization, let's talk. There's a link to schedule a call with me in the show notes. Thanks so much. I'll talk to you soon. Thank you for listening to What We Made Possible. I really hope this episode resonated. As a coach, I always end with action steps, and so I invite you to do something, which is to pause and ask yourself, what resonated? What am I taking away? And what's possible for me and my community now? If you liked this conversation, please leave a review and a rating. It helps so much. Thanks again.